Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I am Myleek, and I am excited about today's show because someone extraordinary is joining us. With us today is Deesha Dyer, whose new book, Undiplomatic: How My Attitude Created the Best Kind of Trouble, is sure to resonate with this audience. Deesha ventured into the world of internships at 31 years old, stepping into the White House during the first year of the Obama presidency. Her journey from internship applicant to becoming a key player at one of the highest echelons of government is a story of breaking barriers and defying the conventional at every turn. Today, we'll dive into her motivations, her challenges, and the impactful experiences that have shaped her unique path. So get ready for a conversation filled with insights on perseverance, breaking the mold, and making the best kind of trouble.
Quer desenvolver os talentos da sua equipe e potencializar os resultados da sua empresa? Conte com a expertise do atendimento corporativo do Senac São Paulo, que já capacitou mais de 1 milhão de pessoas e profissionais de instituições públicas, privadas e terceiro setor. Construa uma equipe altamente motivada e capacitada e destaque-se no mercado. Entre em contato, acesse sp.senac.br/corporativo e saiba mais. Quer saber? Senac.
Quando você ouve um podcast, está procurando entretenimento ou conhecimento, certo? E se você procura por desempenho e qualidade para o seu veículo, qual a sua escolha? Os amortecedores Motorcraft têm tecnologia Ford e oferecem uma condução suave para uma viagem tranquila e segura. Escolha a confiabilidade dos amortecedores Motorcraft, válidos para a linha K, Fiesta, EcoSport e muito mais. Quando terminar seu podcast, é só acessar a loja da Ford no Mercado Livre e experimentar a diferença.
Okay, I'm really excited about today's interview. I am here with Deesha Dyer, who has written a really incredible book. And I think the kind of story that you were telling in this book, Undiplomatic: How My Attitude Created the Best Kind of Trouble. These are the kind of stories that listeners of this podcast love. And so I'm glad you are here. I think the biggest thing that stood out to me as I started flipping through the book is that you applied for an internship at what age?
I was a ripe 31 years old.
So 31 years old, where so many people are just like, how can I start over? How can I begin something? And so what was the internship and what inspired you to apply for an internship? You know, by 30 years old, you've kind of got a few golden handcuffs on, you're living your real life. Yeah. So at 31, how do you just go, I'm looking for an internship?
Right, exactly. So the internship I applied for was the White House internship.
Okay.
It was the first year of the Obama presidency, so it was 2009.
Okay.
I'll be honest, I didn't even know what an internship was. Like, I heard of it before.
Okay.
But as far as I knew, they were for people who could afford to go somewhere and work for free.
Right.
And that was not me.
Right.
So I never really paid attention to internships until, Barack Obama came on the scene like 2007, 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to figure out how to work with him somehow. And I was like, I don't have any connections. I don't have no college degree. I don't got no money. So this internship application came across my desk and someone was like, can you send it to all the young people you work with? Because I've been a community leader for a long time. I, have many mentees scattered across the earth at this point.
Okay.
And I looked through it and I was like, well, I just went back to college, community college, and, and I know how to write essays. I was a journalist. And so I was like, I'm not going to pass this on to these competition little kids.
Right.
I'm applying myself. And so I did.
And so you did. And then you get the internship. And how do you feel when you get this internship? Because like you said, this is now you're going to go free.
Yeah. I mean, I felt I will say it was like another world. I felt a little bit out of place in the sense that I was 31 years old. Everyone else was like 19 to 22 years old. I felt like I knew nothing about politics. I knew nothing about how the White House worked.
Right.
I barely knew the 3 branches of government. So I think that I felt so kind of out of place, and I can't believe that I'm here. And it was such a it was such a, surreal moment. But I came to find out that you didn't need to know all about politics.
Right.
You just had to know how to be a hard worker and bring yourself to the table, which isn't hard for me.
All right. So you end up getting a lot of promotions. Can you just kind of briefly walk us through the promotions? And then when you get to the final promotion, explain to us what this is, because even as I was sort of like researching and going through your book, I was like, I don't even know that I knew this existed. So even if I say the title, I don't know, so kind of walk us through and then tell us what this like title is.
Yes, definitely. So I finished the internship. It was one semester. So I started in September 2009, ended in December 2009.
Okay.
Went back home to Philadelphia, had my regular life, but I just didn't feel the same. I wanted to figure out like, not how I can get back to the White House, but just do something else meaningful besides, and I love being a secretary, so there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
But I think that for me, I was like, I just did this big internship. There's got to be something else I could do.
Okay.
And so I went to go quit my job. As I quit my job, the White House called me to be the director of scheduling correspondence.
Okay.
And basically that was the role that the person that supervised the interns and the person that like wrote the letters back to the public on behalf of the president and whatnot to decline requests. So I did that. June 2010, got hired, did that for a number of years. And then the same department I was in was like the travel department. And I was like, I love travel and I'm still broke. So like,
Right.
So if I can get paid to travel on behalf of the president of the United States, I was like, sign me up for whatever job this is. And so I got promoted to the hotel director, which still remains my favorite job, where I got to be with them around the world, like in 5-star hotels. And I wasn't paying. It was luxurious.
So what is it? So a hotel director. So are you just staying in nice hotels for a living?
Basically what you do is you book the hotels for all of the teams. So when the president travels or the first lady, there's a myriad of people that go with them, from like the technical communications, the Secret Service, to the military. And that job was in charge of booking the hotels for the whole like advanced team that went ahead of him.
Right.
But then if they spent the night somewhere, you would have to spend the night as well and do their hotel and make whatever hotel it was like their home.
Right.
So I love that job. I mean, I still do that for them actually.
Before you move on to the next one, I must know your favorite hotels. Like from that time, what is the hotel that is like in your heart forever?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say there's a hotel called Esperanza in Cabo.
Okay.
That we stayed at, and it's a dream. And I remember looking at how much it was after I left to see if I could afford to go on my own. I could not.
Yeah.
But it was a dream resort. Can I
tell you? So a couple of Christmases ago, I stayed there, and you know why I stayed there? Because I had read that the president stayed there. So I hit the bucket list account and was like, if Esperanza is good enough for President Obama, I must see this. And so I spent one Christmas there. And
no,
I did, and I booked it because I had read that he had gone there, and so I mean, it's good,
stunning.
It's not something that I'm trying to do every year. It just was like, I have this like bucket list account, and it's like before I die, there are things I want to do, and I
love that you were there.
Yeah, so I wonder, and it was lovely. I spent a week for Christmas there, Okay,
it's absolutely gorgeous, and then. From there, I was like, I did that for a couple of years, and I was like, well, I want to do more with community. Like, how can I like do more with community and bring people into the door? And the deputy social secretary became open in the first lady's office, and the social office is the role that runs all of the events in the White House, like private events, professional events, state dinners. So I did that for a number of years, or like a year and a half, 2 years, and then became the social secretary, which is the top position. That runs all of the events, all of the parties, which I love because I got to bring in my whole community to the White House. I got to bring in DJs and choirs and people swag surfing on the lawn, all that stuff. So I got to make it real black.
Yes, you did. And I did. I was like, I remember during that time, I was like seeing all of my like social friends and even my friend who's been on this podcast, Daytwan, who had done King and Vibe, and who I said to him, I was like, this cannot end and I not make it to something, because this is starting to look like my chances of coming to the White House are getting close, but like it never happened. But there were some killer parties happening. Yes. So you were in charge of all of that.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was the last role, which kind of it was really dope because I was a hip hop journalist, like, a decade before that in Philly and in New York. And so it was one of these things where it kind of came around, full circle, in the sense that I was a journalist and I was thinking, well, what am I doing writing about hip hop, and where's this going to ever lead me? And then years later, it was like, oh, look who's in charge of entertainment at the White House. Like, how can I, really infuse culture into it? So yeah, I was a little worker bee.
Yeah, you did a great job. Now, I wonder, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced in such a traditionally structured environment like the White House? Because I know there are some people who are listening to this who probably come from some unconventional backgrounds, self-included. And then you get into a space like this that's super traditional. I'm just so curious to know, what were some things that just kind of had you like, or this is hard?
I would say the social scene of Washington, like the social secretary is in the social scene. And this was unlike, let me tell you, I'd never seen something like this in my life. I was like, what is happening here? Like, people being like, I had white women trying to give me their old purses and being like,
I read
this
that
will make you look more successful. I'm just like, lady, I'm already at the top, lady. Right. I don't need your purses.
You need the looks, the optics. Here you go.
The optics.
Wow.
Yeah. That was a real shocker for me, because I didn't know that there was a different. I came here to work for the Obamas, so I didn't know how Washington, like the social scene and the party. So that was a shock for me. And I think the other thing, honestly, is there's a lot of faith in people who work at the White House, and they're very smart and very wonderful, but we're all just like doing the best. It isn't like it's the smartest, most amazing people in the world. Like, it is people who had the opportunity to be there, part of a collective. And I thought I'd go there and it was like, everyone knew more than me. And I was like the dumbest one in the room. And I'm like, oh, wait, no, like, we are in this together. Like, right. You know one thing, I know another, but I don't, so that would surprise me a little bit about that. And I think that really brings me to the fact that I thought that I had nothing to give. But when I was there, I was like, I have my portion to give. You have your portion to give. Yeah. I'm not going to be jealous or mad about your portion because I have something you don't have. So that really helped me balance when it came to like not comparing myself and not putting myself down. But it took a while.
Okay. Because I think I saw somewhere that you said like micromanagement became like you became a little bit of a micromanager because you wanted to make sure that you were getting every single thing right.
Yes.
Did you ever get a handle on that? Or was that just kind of like you just recognized it?
Yeah, I would say I got a handle after it was done, which is it's unfortunate for for the people that worked for me. And I'm very honest about that. I'm very honest about my faults and the things I did that probably weren't right. And so I think I got a handle on it afterwards. And I remember apologizing to some people. And I was like, I was so insecure and I was so like, trying to get things done that I took it out on you, or I took it out on like, this is my fault, or this, I have to take responsibility for this, which caused them to like not have a good experience. And I'll forever carry that. I forgive myself for it, but I forever carry that. But I think it's important for us to acknowledge when sometimes we are we're the party that hurts people in the situations. But I got a handle on it after. Yeah. So, thankfully, before I went forward and managed other people.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just like a way to take accountability, even if it is after the fact, to just kind of say, hey, I recognize this. And I mean, that was like a high stakes, some high stakes moment that you hadn't experienced. So I'm going to move on into a couple of questions about the book and just some basic things. The title of the book is Undiplomatic. Can you just tell us why you chose that as the title of the book and just,
I'll be honest, we couldn't come up with nothing better, but I would also say that, you know what I mean? Let's just be like, I don't have no deep meaning besides the fact that
did you have some other, like, what were some of the other titles?
Oh no, girl, you don't even want to know. You don't even want to know. They were not good. Okay. And I think that my husband and I I was like getting dressed or something. And I was like, I want to think of something that's like has to do with politics in a way, but also something super simple, one word, and we just kept going on and on about decorum and diplomacy, blah blah. And my husband said, "How about undiplomatic?" And I was like,
I'll take that.
"You know what?
That has a ring to it."
I was like, "That's correct. That's good."
Yeah.
Took it to the publishers and they loved it. And I think that since we chose it, it really has taken on a meaning of its own of just being like, I came in undiplomatic way, the way I think, the way I act, the way I talk, the way I walk. It is not traditional. It is not diplomatic all the time, but that's needed and that's valued. And I still belong. And so I think that it became a new meaning of just like, no matter what comes my way, like I'm going to be myself. And if it's undiplomatic, that's okay because it's still contributing to whatever cause, to whatever. So it got its own meaning, but it didn't start there.
It didn't start there. Yeah, I'm glad because there was a period of time where I was reading books by people that had worked with the president. And so I think is Reggie, is that his name, who has a book? And then there was another person who had a book. So I'm glad to have this book by you, a Black woman, just to read about all the different people who worked during that time. Let's see. I feel like imposter syndrome was kind of the theme. Am I right or am I wrong? And I think that's a huge, the majority of the questions and emails that I get on this podcast are about having imposter syndrome, and even had an episode by some doctors who specialize in it. But like, did that feel like the theme of this? And like,
entrando em contato com atendimento ao cliente. Para muitas pessoas é um jeito fácil de arruinar um bom dia. Mas na Zendesk, nós deixamos a experiência do cliente melhor. Melhor para sua avó, melhor para o seu vendedor preferido de flores, melhor para o cara do apartamento 3A, melhor para você, melhor para todos. Porque enquanto alguns dizem que o cliente sempre tem razão, nós dizemos que o cliente é sempre humano. E como seres humanos, queremos fazer algo melhor para todos nós. Zendesk, experiência do cliente com IA desenvolvida para humanos.
How do you feel about it now?
100%. And I think that I have to be honest about imposter syndrome because I would like to join the chorus of new wave theory and be like, it doesn't exist. Doesn't exist.
Right, not real.
Yada, yada, yada. But I'm like, until we come up with a name for what does exist, because I do feel something, I'm not going to dismiss and just say it doesn't exist. Like, I don't believe in it.
Right.
Well, that's great that you don't believe in it, but then what's the feeling? Like, what's the feeling that we have? We all seem to have it in different ways, especially Black women. And I started kind of researching a little bit, thinking about my own trajectory and evolution of it. And I was like, wait a minute. Like, I went from being like, I don't have a 4-year degree. I don't have a doctorate. I don't have a master's, all of these things. And that is my fault. Like, I should have done better. Like, I should have. And so when you think that way, everything, that's your normal. I tell people that was my normal. I never had no, like, up and down. The normal was I'm not qualified because I saw everybody else doing these things. And now that I have evolved a bit, and I'm still learning. I mean, it's a lifelong process, Now that I have evolved a bit, I really feel like, oh, wait, no. Like, whose standard of success am I living up to? Like, Number two, like the qualifications in which I have got me to the top of the White House. And I'm not saying that achievements are a replacement for these things, but it's just like the characteristics of who I am got me there. Yeah. And then also like, this is not my fault. Like this is these systems and this stuff that we're fed constantly to tell us from when we're young that like, we're either too loud, we're too bold, we're too emotional, we're too whatever. Yeah. And after a while, you start to believe those things because every step of the way from primary school to college to jobs, it's the messages we're being fed. And so now I try to repel it like a mosquito, like, no. And it still gets to me because I'm still, doing new things like in a book, like, I'm writing a book. I never did this before. Right. So of course I'm going to feel a little like, but that's more nerves and like just trying something new than I'm not qualified to write a book.
Right. Like what are the voices dissolving some of the thoughts that are coming up of just like, do you belong here? It's like, it says you're here. Yeah. You're here. So it's like
100. Yeah. You're here.
Yeah.
You're already here.
Yeah. And how we talk ourselves out of these spaces. And so I guess I wonder if you want to share what was one of your most memorable stories from the book, from your time in the White House that you would share here.
Yeah, I think there are so many great memories, but I think I'll use one that kind of goes with imposter syndrome a little bit. And that's when we had the Pope visit. And, I found out I was pregnant. And I remember being so afraid that I couldn't tell people. I have no shame in being pregnant or having an abortion. I have zero shame about that. Okay. But I was so afraid that people would look at me as if like I was right about her. She's from Philly. She don't have a degree. She wears these earrings. Like, of course, all the things that people say about Black women, just, because we having sex, because we're allowed to, like, whatever. And so I think that number one, that event was so wonderful for me because I was able to have a hand in like bringing some culture to it by having like a Black gospel choir sing total praise, for the Pope. And that was amazing for me. But I think that it's also memorable because that was when I really woke up to the imposter syndrome because my health forced me to. Like, I went back to work, with a large pad, and sometimes a diaper because I was still bleeding from the abortion. And so I think that for me, it was such a wake up point because I was like, Deesha, like this job, any job, not just this one, any job is not worth your health. Like it's just not. But we feel like if we take time off, if we just stop, then it's going to make us look bad. And so that was like partially the imposter syndrome being like, no, you have to keep proving and proving and proving when I had already proved myself to get the job. Like I wasn't, so yeah.
Yeah. So was this was the event at the New York Times? Was this the event at the New York Times wrote a piece like, can she hack it basically? Can you, come on.
100%.
Tell us about that and how did that feel?
Man.
They wrote an article. I was just like, no, they didn't.
I had the Pope visit, and then 2 days later, I had the state dinner, and then a couple of days later, I had to go up to United Nations General Assembly for a big event. So those three events, those three things are so humongous. They never happen in the same week. And so New York Times basically said, this is her Super Bowl. She's a newbie. Like, is she going to be able to do it? Is she going to be able to? And I think that when I read it, of course, they used a very unflattering picture because, of course. Of course. I read it and I think I was in shock that it was just like, don't y'all have something else to write about?
Don't y'all have something else to talk about?
Yeah.
Like, how do they put this all together? Like, they're just, right. Like, that's what I said. I wouldn't have even known to look for you, to put this on you, to say, can this one person, like, do this? And then you just killed it.
And then I did.
And you were sick.
I was sick. And I was just like, and I think that the thing for me was I asked myself if it had been a traditional social secretary, like a white woman that dressed the part or whatever, would they have written the same thing? You know what I mean? Like, would they have said that? And I can honestly say that I don't think so. No other social secretary from that time had an article doubting
could she pull it off. So now you had to go into it like, I mean, you did a great job. And I think the part that I read in the book was when the president then has you come over and shake the Pope's hand. And you're like, hold on, I do the background. Wait, I thought that was cool. But also like, I just imagine you in that moment. Like, I know you're not, but also yes.
Yes. I mean, I didn't even know Pete Souza, the photographer, took a photo and I didn't even, I was blank, because I was working. And so that photo, when I look at that photo and the Pope smiling, the president smiling, and I'm just like,
you're not in your body.
I look at the photo now, like, why did y'all call me over? Like, I was fine being on the other side. My place is the background. Like, it's just, so that was a moment for me that the president didn't have to do that. But when he said, like, this is the person that put it all together for you, I mean, I was just like, yes, like, and I'm about to have an abortion. Like, it was like, just, can you just bless me, Pope? Thank you.
Bless me. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So when I got introduced to you by your team and I started like digging around, and I just thought this woman is so interesting and so fascinating. And I was just trying to read, there wasn't as many articles and interviews that exist now, but I read the article that you wrote about heading to the altar at 44. And I also know that like those stories will really resonate with this audience. And so I'll share the part that resonated. There's just a line where you just say, there's two things if you let me share. But it's just, you said turning 40 was a changing point for me. I sought out therapy with commitment and intention. And I just wanted to ask you about that. Like you said, you had tried therapy before, but like, what was it about turning 40 and therapy, the gym, I think you said, and there was one more other thing that you
Probably church.
Church, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How was just like being intentional? How do you think that kind of called up this love or going to the altar 4 years later?
Yeah, I will say that, part of that was, I had a breakdown. I mean, about, when I was probably turning 39 to 40, I had a horrible breakdown caused by a breakup, and it wasn't just a breakup in the sense of, I'm upset about this man. That was the first time I had realized how much I had, like devalued myself to like tolerate, this treatment that I could only see from the outside. So it became less about like, oh my goodness, like we broke up, like whatever, like thank the Lord, he was horrible.
Right.
But I look at myself now and I'm just like, how did you allow that? How did you allow somebody to treat you that bad? And that was the first time. It definitely wasn't the first time someone treated me bad,
right.
But it was the first time that I had lost hair. Dang. And I was like, I was trying to like, just trying to make everything right by, being like, I'm not going to live there, but I'll still pay half the rent. I mean, like I was just
wow
in another world. And I think that I had no choice.
Yeah.
I lost myself and I had no choice but to say like, I'm really desperate for a solution here. And I know that I have to attack it. And so I lived around the corner from a really great church. And so I went to the church and the church had mental health services there. And so they had on-call therapists after every service. Wow. It was free.
Wow.
And so I started seeing somebody there. And then that led to a real-time therapist in New York, a Black woman that I started to see. And then that led to like going to the gym, because at this point I was pre-diabetic. Okay. I had high blood pressure, bad hypertension.
Yeah.
I was just a mess. And so I think that for me, my priority was never finding someone. It was really finding myself. And this is not the case for everyone. Everyone's different. But the case for me was I was ready to go find somebody that could fix my issues and fix me. I was full ready. I was like, this is what you do. You get a partner, you start to feel better about yourself, like fix me. And I knew that I couldn't do that to somebody or myself, that I wanted to be free. And so I started, this trifecta of church, gym, and therapy. And it changed my life in many ways. I also want to recognize that I had the privilege to do that at the time. I had a great job that paid for that. I understand not everybody has that. And I think that when I started swiping again, it was like to have fun. It was like, this will be fun. Let me find somebody to have fun. And lo and behold, I met my husband. So, yeah.
I love that. I thought that was such a sweet story.
Yeah.
And so before we get out of here, I would love it if you could leave the listeners with some gems or a gem, for people who may be in a situation where they don't, time is going by. And there's all of these societal markers of things we should be doing and things we should have. And if there's anything that you can leave us with to give us some comfort with sort of like acceptance or being okay with where we are and maybe still striving, because it seems like that is what you are still doing with becoming an author, got married, and I was like, I do this all the time where I ask like 15 questions in one. So let me just pull something out.
Yeah, what I would say is number one is, I tell people this, in the audience, you are so loved. Like there is nothing that somebody could do that could make me not love them in a way that sees them. And to me, I understand. I am not, on the other side, or I'm still in a journey, and I'll be in a journey. We'll all be on a journey until we're not here anymore. But what I would say is, number one, my story is a testimony that timing is the timing that's set for us. And these markers, they're BS in a way, because everybody is different, and you are allowed to take time out. You are allowed to stop doing whatever you want to do something else. You are allowed to change your mind. These are freedoms that we have. And so I think that what I would say to people is like, I understand and I know how lonely it is, because even though I'm married, I still get lonely about things. Like I still get down on myself. I still do all these things, but I don't stay there because I know that I'm surrounded by community. So what I would say is these standards of success that have been set for us, they were set by people that never wanted us to succeed. And I think people will understand what that means very much so. And so you are always striving and striving and striving to find value in success standards that don't mean anything. And so I think, for me, I just want people to know they're loved and they're not alone, and that, you're in community. Get in community. If you don't have one around you, grab my book, because my people keep saying it makes me feel seen. And I can't be with you, but you can be with my words. And I took the test. I am the testimony. So just know that. And there's, and I know listeners, like I've listened to podcasts and been like, that sounds good, but then like 10 minutes later, I'm feeling the same way. And so I understand that, but just continue to stay in community and know you're loved and valued no matter what. I don't care what you do. I don't care where you work. I don't care what your house looks like. I don't care. Like, I don't care. I see you for you. That's that.
I don't care if you don't know what an internship is, or if you don't, all of the different things that you say in this book that just, still belonging. And so many of us feel like we have to do so much bargaining, to belong in all of these spaces, and believing that we are enough. And so that is what I really loved about this book, is that it is a true, story and testimony, and I can relate to so much in it. And so it is such a gift. I'm so glad that you took the time to do this, because I wonder, after you leave the White House, how does that feel? Is it like was it like a big kind of like come down, the high of it? And then how did you feel now doing something like this?
Yeah, I would say that, it took me 7 years to write the book for good reason, because I had to reconcile within myself the whole experience and how it changed me. And I had to detach my value from the job. And that was hard, because I had this high job that like is in the papers, and I was the head of the parties and all this stuff. And then when it ends, it ends. And I think that I had to make sure that I reclaimed who I was, because I didn't want to put my value on a job. But it's hard to not do that, especially like even with the book. It's like, great, Michelle Obama endorsed Oprah, book club did something. And now, like, okay, it's over. Like, what do you do? Like, I didn't hit the bestseller list. Like, do I feel bad about myself? No, I don't. Because like, I know that who I am is, the achievements are great and accolades are great, but who I am is so wonderful. It's so worthy. So I think I feel wonderful. I feel good that I'm getting the story out. I feel good that like Black people can read it and be like, oh, one of us was in there. You know what I mean? Like, I feel great about that. But I am also just like, how can I continue to use whatever gift I have to talk to people about the story and about themselves and imposter syndrome, while also doing my own continuous healing, and so, yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, for writing this book, and for spending the time with us. Until next time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.